Hello.
Hello.
What's up? Hey, pro. You got everything from me?
Got everything from you and Phil, so we're all good.
Cool. I don't see him.
Still trying to get in.
Don't yawn.
It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Not gonna hide against these boys. They're not. Well, I'm gonna cover my guy over here. They're smarter than that. And so if you have some deficiencies, they'll expose you in a minute.
I've been very pleased with his command with our team, our staff, our players. We've been very productive in our practices in Columbia and also since we've come to Tampa. And I think he's done a really good job. Obviously, game day is important from a calling standpoint, from an adjustment standpoint. Certainly, if you're making the right calls and the right adjustments, you're going to be productive. So that is important. But I've been very pleased at this point.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome into Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. We continue our coverage of Bowl Bonanza here in South Carolina. South Carolina here in Tampa, preparing for the Outback Bowl with Michigan. Clemson down in New Orleans, preparing for the Sugar Bowl, the national semifinal against Alabama. A lot of great stuff coming your way tonight here on Sports Talk. We'll hear from the head coaches here, Will Muschamp and Jim Harbaugh, as they had their final sit-down with the media today. We'll hear from some of the Tigers as well with Will out in New Orleans. The Professor Tom Hayes is back at our studios in downtown Columbia. We also hope to have with us tonight the M&M boys, Will Merritt and Corey Miller, a little bit after 7 o'clock. Couple of recruiting notes for you as well. So it's another full, busy show here tonight on Sports Talk. If you want to join in, give us a call, 800-956-7266. Email talkback at sportstalksc.com and on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Well, to recap the day here in Tampa, about 75 degrees, beautiful day here. You know, I was talking to some of my fellow Tampanians, not exactly sure what you refer to the residents as here, but they get bored with this weather. I was talking to some of them. They're like, you know, we'd like to have a little bit of variety. It's 75, 80 degrees here during the winter, 95, 100 degrees during the summer. I said, well, it's 32 degrees back in South Carolina, so you make that decision. Beautiful day here at USC.
How much of a cut are you getting from the Tampa Bay Chamber of Commerce this weekend?
I wish they were paying me something. That'd be kind of neat.
Sounds like you're on the tank right now.
Yeah, the news out of USC today from Will Muschamp, Rico Dowdle will not play in the game. He practiced yesterday in full uniform. I thought he looked pretty good. Shows you what I know. He was in a yellow jersey today, and so he is out, been declared out by Muschamp. A.J. Turner looks very good, he said. He's healthy. Now, see, I thought Turner had a little bit of a limp going yesterday. Shows you what I know. He's healthy. He'll be returning kicks, and he'll be handling a lot of the running back duties along with Tyson Williams and Mon Denson. So that was one note. Donnell Stanley, who did not practice yesterday, from what I understand from talking to David Kleininger from the Charleston Post and Courier, it's routine for them to hold Stanley out of practice one day of the week because he's had that foot injury in the past, that lower leg injury. So he didn't practice yesterday because of that. Nothing new. He was in uniform today and practicing this afternoon, and he is fine. Sherrod Green, the same. He was back in practice today in uniform and ready to go. So that sums it up as far as the injury situation with the Gamecocks. The teams got together last night for some bowling. It wasn't particularly friendly. Got a little spicy there at the end, a little bit in your face, finger pointing, that kind of stuff, trash talking. But at the end of the day, no harm, no foul, no punches were thrown. It was not a fight or anything like that. So nothing has come of that. That's all cool. What about down your way? What was up with the Tigers and the Crimson Tide today?
Well, we got a chance to at least hear from the players and defensive coordinator Brett Venables earlier today. Our first real full media wrap session with the players here. We also got to hear from some players on the Alabama offensive side of the football. The really big news item today was really kind of a non-event in the end of it. We were supposed to get Austin Bryant today, but he was not. He did not appear, and we were kind of wondering why he didn't show. And he was part of 20 players who were selected at random from Clemson to take part in an NCAA-mandated drug test, and that unfortunately is something that takes precedence over the media availability. But we didn't see Austin, but we did see a couple other players, Dorian O'Daniel, Cleveland Farrell, as well as some of the other players on the defensive side of the football, and defensive coordinator Brett Venables, all of which you can find at sportstalksc.com. And we'll have some of that for you also throughout the course of Sports Talk today. But gathering from a lot of people, a lot of the Alabama media for the first time are asking about last year's game. And it's really some of the first times this year, at least first time in a long time, that Clemson's had to answer questions about last year's game. And you can really tell that this defense takes personally the effort, or at least the output that came about from last year's game. And the fact that they did allow 31 points and also allowed Alabama to score that late touchdown before the Deshaun Watson drive that ended with the Hunter Renfrow catch in the end zone. But I think a lot of people believe that the Clemson defense left a lot on the table against Alabama last year, and they certainly believe so as well. They let us see about 15 minutes of practice, Corn, and Dabo Sweeney, the ultimate gamesmanship person. We saw stretching and we saw punt drills. So I really can't give you anything. I can't give you really anything substantive other than we saw punts with no cover and kickoffs with no cover. And those who were running were doing so very well, but they were doing so in very frigid temperatures here in New Orleans, as it's probably about half the temperature here that it is where you are. It is an unseasonably cool weekend here, and we're expecting a lot of that in New Orleans here over the course of the next couple of days. But they will get a chance to walk through in the Superdome as well on Sunday before their matchup with Alabama in the Dome on Monday evening.
You see anybody in the Clemson side of things in yellow? Anybody sitting out that should have been out there playing?
It was weird that we didn't see anybody in yellow, but as I was talking with, as you I'm sure were with your colleagues in South Carolina, I was talking to some of the people in Clemson. Just because you don't see somebody in yellow during the visible portion does not mean that they're not going to put a yellow penny on once once the media ends up departing. So if there is anybody hurt for Clemson, we're not knowing about it, or at least we don't know about it yet. I know that we did ask specifically about Trey Lamar and Mark Fields. Both of them, Brent Venables says are both practicing and are both good to go. So at least from that perspective, anybody we knew who was injured previously has recovered. The only person, at least who sits is injured right now from our perspective, is Judah Davis, who we knew about during bowl practices, the reserve linebacker for the Tigers. But it seems, at least it would appear, that Clemson's going to go into this game with all of the bullets in its gun.
It sounds good. And Pro back in Columbia, everybody just sort of sitting and waiting for these games to roll around on Monday at noon, and again later at 8:45. It's going to be a big day for the Palmetto State. And again, I think feeling of a lot of people, even though the odds makers would beg to differ, I think a lot of people like the chances of the Gamecocks and the Tigers to pull off the double.
Yeah, I think from a national media standpoint, and they look at the last perspective you've gotten is the Clemson game. But this South Carolina team has been resourceful throughout the season. That's why they won 8 games despite the struggles of the offense. I was just thinking about Chuck Reedy because he was talking about – I asked him last night, what does he look at, especially the bowl game? He said turnovers. And Virginia Tech was going in to take a 14-3 lead against Oklahoma State in the bowl game I'm looking at now. And, yes, they fumbled inside the 5-yard line. Oklahoma State has the football, so there you go. Anchors away in the Military Bowl as Navy knocks off Virginia 49-7. So I guess the Cavaliers didn't want to go anywhere there. And the Panthers' old GM found a new home, Corn. He's now the general manager of the Giants.
Yeah, I saw that. That's where he came from, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Did he come from up there? So the ACC takes it on the chin earlier today with Virginia. Boston College lost yesterday. They had gotten off to Duke won its bowl game. And anybody else from the ACC
I think that's
win a game yet? That's it? Yeah.
That's it.
And, of course, there's been one SEC team to play thus far. How'd that team do, Will?
They didn't do well yesterday, Corn. They reverted back to the September swoon earlier this year, did Missouri, and give credit to Texas. They came out and played well.
I think the SEC wants to yank its membership since they lost that game to Texas. We'll be back in a moment.
At least they didn't lose to South Florida in Birmingham.
We're going to go to Muschamp.
That's what I predicted. How long is it? What are you laughing?
You said how long is the audio?
Yeah.
6:43. Jesus.
Liberties taken. Okay. How long is a Harbaugh?
4:37.
Reasonable. Check this out, by the way. Check out the spelling of my last name.
Is that wrong?
That is very wrong. Check. It's very, very wrong.
Correct it with your pen. You got like a big red marker?
There's only one letter wrong. I don't have a pen on me. It's okay, though.
Hey, you seen Corey down there today?
Corey.
Miller.
I have not seen Corey down here. Is he here?
Phil said he was on his way down there.
I ain't seen him. I don't have a headphone splitter if he gets here, unfortunately. So it's not like I can have him sitting here.
I don't think he needs a mic.
He would need to be able to hear, though. I don't have a headphone splitter. Is Corn going to ask me what I ate last night? I'm waiting for that question.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
All right, welcome back in Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266, continuing our coverage of the Gamecocks and the Tigers at their bowl locations. I'm in Tampa, where it was beautiful today. Will is in New Orleans, and Professor Tom Hayes is in the Sports Talk Barco Lounger in our beautiful studios in downtown Columbia. Your thoughts are welcomed, 800-956-7266. Email talkback at sportstalksc.com and on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Our poll question for this week is still up and available for you on our website, sportstalksc.com. We invite you to get over there and vote. It's always a good one at the end of the football season, the State Player of the Year. Who is your pick as State Player of the Year? Right now we've had over 500 votes. Sky Moore is leading with 43.8%, and Kelly Bryant is next at 35.5%. Those are by far the top two vote getters. At number 3, Clemson defensive end Cleveland Farrell at 7.4%. You can also write in a vote. We've had 9 write-in votes. Always like to see who people write in. There's been some write-ins for Hayden Hurst, for Christian Wilkins, a lot for Hayden Hurst. In fact, Hayden Hurst and Christian Wilkins are the only 2 who have been written in, which is interesting from a standpoint of South Carolina and Michigan, because you have Hayden Hurst for South Carolina, very good player, and Michigan has a defensive end named Hurst. So those 2 could get locked up on each other. It could be Hurst on Hurst.
How come my guy Dorian O'Daniel didn't get any play?
I don't know. You'd have to talk to the Clemson fans and ask them why they have not. I mean, I almost put him on the list. I didn't want to go more than 2 deep for the 2 big schools, and I just had to cut it off somewhere. I mean, he had a great year, but, again, you look at Farrell's numbers, and they're superior. His numbers are better than any other defenders on the Clemson team.
But he was the only finalist for a national position award amongst either of the teams.
Yeah. I don't doubt what you're saying. I just really kind of went, I just went by statistics, man.
Mm-hmm.
I went by statistics. Look at Farrell's numbers.
One of the 5 best linebackers in the country.
It probably.
Well, you know what? Hey, you know what? You can go in and write his name in.
There you go.
I will write his name in
first.
Over 100 times. And partly, maybe some of those numbers are that good because of Wilkins drawing a lot of double teams. Sometimes a guy has a good feast because the other guys are drawing double team blocks.
And speaking of feast, what did you eat last night, Willie P?
I actually had a very nice shrimp fra diavolo over at Mona Lisa in the French Quarter, and I had little Cafe du Monde beignets for dessert. It was very nice.
That sounds very good. Dorian O'Daniel had 99 tackles, has 99 tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. Those are good. Cleveland Farrell has 61 tackles, 17 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks, 12 quarterback pressures. He leads the Tigers in all those categories except for total tackles.
Except for the fact that you have to think about the fact that Dorian spends most of his time in coverage. So you can't necessarily stack the tackle for loss numbers against Farrell.
No. He's not spending most of his time in coverage. He's not making 99 tackles playing back in the secondary.
They use him basically as a nickel, almost kind of like a nickel backer hybrid. Basically, it's like against a lot of teams at least.
Well, look, they're really good players. I mean, it's. I just went with the numbers overall. 17 tackles for loss jumped out at me. A team high 8.5 sacks, 12 quarterback pressures. Like I said, you can go write his name in if you want to. If that'll make.
I just did.
Well, start a campaign. Start a statewide campaign. Let's get Dorian elected. How about that?
Make Dorian great again.
Nick Saban on the injuries with the Crimson Tide. I don't know if you saw this, but he said that they don't have any suspensions, and he said everybody's aware of the injuries they've had. Dylan Moses was injured in practice, the third practice. Of course, he's out. Hootie Jones was hurt in the Auburn game. He's out. Sean D. and Hamilton is also out. But he pointed out that Mac Wilson is back. Christian Miller is back. Terrell Lewis is back. So they've got some of those guys coming back at linebacker. People are talking about the injury situation at linebacker. It sounds like, yes, they're missing some guys, Will, but they're getting some people back.
They're getting the guys back, but I think that there's still some inefficiencies as to kind of where they are. And I also, and again, you never really hear this or say this, but I'm almost wondering if we're going to get to a point where we're starting to wonder whether or not Alabama actually played anybody of consequence this year, because you saw a lot of teams in the West not necessarily playing up to snuff. And, they struggle with a team like Texas A&M. I mean, those are the kinds of things that are eye-opening and eye-popping. And in my mind, I'm not saying that Clemson played a better or tougher schedule, but there were some games where Clemson had to really face some adversity, and Alabama didn't really handle adversity as well as say, Clemson did during the season. Well,
I think that comes to expectations. We expect Alabama to walk in like the ogre with a big stick and beat everybody up. I think the interesting thing about Alabama this year is they not only showed that they can pound you, but they're resourceful. I think a lot of any other team would have lost at Mississippi State. Alabama found a way to steal that football game.
They did.
As I said before, a wounded bear is very dangerous, and that scares me.
Well, the one thing too that is evident, and you can hear basically in the tone of the people who were talking today, is that Alabama, not necessarily that they looked ahead of their late season opponents, but singularly on their mind is revenge against Clemson. That much is evident, at least from talking to them. So I think right now you wonder how that translates into their effort on Monday. But I also wonder just exactly how much they took that loss in January to heart, and how much they've kind of fueled all that energy into this game coming up on Monday, because that can benefit you, or also it can hurt you if you're too jacked up for a game of this nature. Then you end up making mistakes.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, I think you got to be very careful if you're Clemson about not going in too confident against Alabama, not reading your own headlines, and not reading the funeral postings for the Alabama football program. Some people are starting to kind of say, maybe Alabama. Yeah, well, we've heard it here. I mean, we've heard, Coach Reedy say it and others. Um, this Alabama team has got some real issues, quarterback, linebacker issues, things of that nature. Yet it's just when you think that you might have them dead and buried that they rise up and they beat you, and they beat you soundly. Who was, I guess it was Tannehill. Tannehill had a lot of respect for Alabama last night. He pointed out, hey, this team was number one in the country all season long until it lost to Alabama. So it lost its rival game on the road against a very good Auburn team. And for that reason, now we're all starting to wring our hands of Alabama and say, okay, the king is dead, long live the king. And there's a new king waiting to sit on the throne, which would be Clemson if they beat Alabama, and especially if they follow up with a win in the national championship. So I'm not so quick to want to write off Alabama. Vegas certainly hasn't written them off because they still have the Crimson Tide. They've got their ears shut to all this kind of talk, and they're sticking with the Crimson Tide as the favorite.
I go back to Chuck Reedy used to say, Corn, when Chuck Reedy said that Danny Ford would always look at what the opponent he played did after they played him, because he really relished the fact that they pounded people when you played Clemson. What happened to Auburn after they played Alabama? They won against Alabama, but then went into the SEC championship game and got beat soundly by Georgia, which means Alabama had something to do with that.
I think you look no further than the Miami game as proof that Clemson does not believe their own hype and they take every game seriously. And we're going to see Alabama play basically an anomaly. This will be the first team that enters a college football playoff semifinal off a loss. It's a different environment than coming in off of a victory in your conference championship game.
All right, we'll be back in just a moment. Going to hear from Will Muschamp. Let him fill you in on his team coming off of what he called a sluggish practice today. He'll also opine about Brian McClendon and how he's doing as the OC. That's coming up in a moment.
Everything moving back a segment? We could do Venables before the top of the hour?
Give me a second real quick. He said, we do Venables at 45.
Mm-hmm.
We are back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Good to have you with us. Coming up in just a little bit, we'll hear from USC football coach Will. Also hear from Clemson defensive coordinator Brent Venables. When do you guys hear from the head coaches again, Will?
We will hear from them on Saturday when we have the full team media day. We'll also have the full player lineup as well on that day, and then we'll also hear from them again on Sunday as well. We're going to get. We're spoiled with the access we get here for these players and coaches. We get to see them a lot.
Yeah. Here today was the only day to get the two head coaches, and they weren't together. They came in separate sessions. The Gamecocks practiced in the morning, early afternoon, and then we had Harbaugh at 12:45. And then they went to practice after Harbaugh finished up. They went to practice, and then Muschamp came in all showered and wearing a pair of shorts and a South Carolina shirt, and he had already finished up with his team. And then they went to Busch Gardens to have a little bit of fun this afternoon. Met Jim McVeigh today out at practice. He is the director of the bowl game, has a very strong tie to, of course, football at a variety of different levels. So it's nice meeting him. There is a NFL game here on Sunday. It's going to create, they hope, not a problem, but because the game's not kicking off till 4:25, they're going to have very limited time to turn that stadium around because kickoff is at noon. And as he was
worried about the grass.
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, they'll be bringing in new sod, but he has to be concerned about the painting. If the field is wet for any reason, that you can't paint a wet field, obviously. So, they're hoping that won't be a problem, and the folks are going to have to turn that thing around in a hurry to get it set up for the Outback Bowl look versus the Buccaneer look. As far as Will Muschamp is concerned, he could care less about all that. He's more concerned, of course, about getting his football team as prepared as possible. He's very excited to be in this bowl game because of what it means to his program, and the opportunity is there for South Carolina, he believes, to take a major step forward with a win here in Tampa on Monday. Here's some of what he had to say during his time with the media today.
We've had two practices, a little sluggish today. I thought we had a very physical practice yesterday. A little more sluggish today. And, injury-wise, Rico Dowdle probably won't play in the game. I think everybody else should be good. Donnell Stanley didn't practice, I guess, a day ago. He practiced today. Gerard Green was back on the field today. A.J. Turner to getting ready to play a good Michigan team we've got a lot of respect for, got a lot of respect for the program. First of all, the winningest program in college football. Coach Harbaugh's done a really good job, and I'm a football fanatic, and you go back and look at Coach Schembechler and Coach Carr and all the great players that have played at this program. Got great respect for the program. Charles Woodson's one of my favorite players to watch as a defensive back. So Anthony Carter, Desmond Howard, he'll get mad you don't mention his name. But we're looking forward to a great game on Monday. I'll open it up for any questions.
Coach, I asked Coach Harbaugh the same question. A lot of people talk about if it's not a playoff game, it's a meaningless bowl game. He said the bowls are important, but should expand to 16 playing on it.
Well, first of all, anytime you hit the football field, it's meaningful. So that's nonsense in my opinion. This is a huge game for our program, an opportunity to win 9 games, an opportunity to play Michigan, a team that we've got great respect for. But I think the bowls are really important to college football. Our guys are having a wonderful time. So, but I think that the bowl games are really important for college football. And I think at 4 teams, the 5th team's pissed off. There's 64 teams that play basketball, and we'll have shows on Sunday night, and the 65th team, their coach is pissed they didn't get in the tournament. So, it's a long season as it is, and the bowls are really important for college football. And I think our guys are having a great week and excited to be here.
Coach, you've mentioned the word respect in terms of Michigan a couple of times already, but how much respect can your program earn if you're able to win this game?
Well, absolutely. I think, you see the progress we've made in year 2, and we continue to move forward in the culture of our program. In order to continue to get where we want to get, and that's winning a championship, and that's what we're going to do. But you got to invest in that, and that's what we're doing right now at the University of South Carolina. And in my opinion, just the brief time that I've been there, the total investment of football operations building, the investment of, paying your coaches. I mean, those are things you've got to do, and that's what we're doing at South Carolina. And you look at the 4 teams in the playoff, they're invested in their programs. So that's what we're doing, and that's what's exciting at our place right now.
Well, Howard, do you like Brian's preparation for the game? And secondly, how much will your offensive production Monday against Michigan factor into the decision you're going to make?
Well, I think the preparation's been really good, number one, by Brian, but our entire offensive staff as well. And we've got a really good staff in place. And I've been very pleased with his command with our team, our staff, our players. We've been very productive in our practices in Columbia and also since we've come to Tampa. And I think he's done a really good job. Obviously, game day is important, from a calling standpoint, from an adjustment standpoint. Certainly, if you're making the right calls and the right adjustments, you're going to be productive. So that is important. But I've been very pleased to this point.
What are you expecting from Randy Peters, the condition quarterback? Limited playing time. What do you know what expect?
Well, I mean, they are who they are, schematically, in my opinion, Phil. And I think that they're a guy that, athletically can do some things with his legs, but he is an accurate thrower. He's a guy that, played extremely well for them, got hurt against Wisconsin and missed the last couple ball games. But when he's been in there, he's been a very productive guy. They've played 3 guys throughout the year, and O'Korn as well, may see him. I don't know that. But he's a guy that, within what they do schematically, the multiple shifts, motions, the 2-back, the run game, the play actions off of that. They've got talented skill guys outside that we're going to be in some 50-50 ball situations. We got to win those down the field. We got to do a great job with eye control off the play actions, and they get multiple tight end sets and different blocking surfaces that they're going to give you. So they're going to give some issues in the game that we're going to have to, obviously adjust. And Jim does a nice job week to week of giving you some different looks. So, but those adjustments will have to be a lot of very important in-game adjustments for this ball game.
How this team has progressed since fall camp. What are some things that impressed you the most?
I think this is a really fun team to be around as far as their approach to practice and how they've approached working and understanding and the culture of your organization and somewhat of a blue collar mentality. And that's my mentality. That's what we want to be. And then have guys and recruit players that buy into that workman like mentality. We're going to do some special things. And I really liked our work ethic and how we approach practice. I mean, I could probably count on one hand where we just had really poor practices in this past year. And a lot of that goes to the leadership. But when your best players are good people, that normally good things happen for you. And that's the situation we're in right now.
Obviously, defensive tackle, you guys are pretty veteran at the starting spots. How much development do you feel like the guys behind you have done as you kind of look forward?
Well, I think Taylor Stallworth's had an outstanding year. He has played really well for us. He's been very consistent each week. You know exactly what you're going to get out of him. He's been a guy that we're going to need to – he needs to play extremely well on Monday for us. I think Javon Kinlaw, you talking about pounds in May, he's down to under 300 pounds now, I think, and has played at a really high level later in the latter part of the season. Kobe Smith continues to come on and do some nice things for us. I've been very pleased with his progress. Uric Jones continues to do some nice things for us and giving us, a good 25 to 30 snaps in a game, which is what we need. So I've been very pleased with that progress. And then you got Keir Thomas and Dante Sawyer, 2 guys that move inside in situational football, 3rd down, 1 minute to help us out. And Keir, certainly a guy that continues to grow, can be in that role next year. So been pleased with the progress. I think, Javon's transformations really has helped us defensively tremendously.
Also, White is on a much higher percentage of his kicks through down the stretch. Did y'all notice anything that he was doing early on the stretch, or is it just out there?
Well, I think, his confidence level has grown, number one. I think number 2, we've put him in better situations inside the 30 as far as some opportunities are concerned. And but I think, mechanically Coleman Hutzler's done a really good job working some details with him that he needed. And it's not a kickoff situation. It's more about the plant foot and all of those things that he's talked to him about that we needed to improve on. But I think confidence level is a huge part of that.
Will Muschamp from his press conference today here in Tampa. When we come back, we'll head to New Orleans, hear from the Tigers, find out what's on their minds looking ahead to Alabama. We continue our coverage of USC and Clemson at the bowl games in just a moment.
Will, can you hear me?
Sir.
Hey, you can bring it back from the break, and that way you can throw it to Venables, and when Venables is done, you can throw it to Phil for recruiting.
Recruiting. So he wants me to bring it out?
Yeah.
All right. Rent. I got a good line. This will be funny.
All right, man, this is your moment.
Hmm?
I said, all right, kid, this is your moment.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Our double coverage continues from New Orleans. Will Pelagic here with you, along with Phil Kornblut, Tom Hayes, as we continue our Clemson and South Carolina game coverage here from New Orleans. A lot was made about how both Clemson and Alabama would handle the allure of the Bayou City. We saw a couple of the Clemson players last night, as they were enjoying the spoils of the city, a.k.a. the beignets at Cafe Du Monde. One reporter said he even saw Dabo Swinney, although I don't believe he asked for his autograph. Too soon? Too soon? Nonetheless, the Tigers, their first full day here in New Orleans, we had a chance to speak with defensive coordinator Brent Venables, and he believes that this challenge for them in front of them is the biggest that they've seen to this point of the season.
As much as anything, it's their ability to physically impose, their will on people. And they've got terrific players, very highly recruited players at every single position in that huddle. And so even when everything is right, the margin for error is very little, fundamentally, athletically, physically. And, when they're able to keep guys fresh, at the skill position, when they're featuring the running backs, it can be it's a great, great challenge. And as we know, they, I think they established the run game early. Last year, we got settled down and got a little bit better. Losing Henry was a big deal for them. And but you know, as we thought a year ago, 34 is a great player as well. And I think you know this year has proven that. So they got home run hitters, man. You know, outside and in that backfield, and then the quarterback. On the first few plays of the game against one of the early opponents, I mean, second play of the game, he's flipping the field, and 60 yards later, it's a touchdown, and that's what they do. You know, some option principles in some ways, and but do a great job of getting their best players the football on the perimeter in space against maybe smaller cover type guys as well, and force everybody to get involved. You're not going to hide against these boys. You know, they're not, well, I'm going to cover my guy over here. They're smarter than that. And so if you have some deficiencies, they'll expose you in a minute.
And how would you describe David Harrison?
Yeah, I just think that it's a huge physical challenge. And, they're really good players blocking you and running the ball. And so, you're not going to get them down, with arm tackles and being out of your gap, stepping the wrong way, putting your hands in the wrong spots. They'll expose you. And where some teams, there's a margin for error. You can step wrong, you can okey doke a block. You can be falling to the ground and get a guy down. These are the best of the best in college football, blocking you and carrying the ball. And so that it starts with the physical challenge and the fundamentals that go along with it. And hopefully that's what you've been able to work on and get back to some basics, just the fundamentals of the game. And like anybody, they'll have some deception type plays, but they're not really into tricking you a whole lot.
You had a lot of help come back from your quarterback, but how much did your secondary step up in the last 3 or 4 games?
Yeah, they have improved, and getting some guys back healthy has helped. Still haven't had Fields, who started the year as a starter, back. Do anticipate him back now, but their growth. Really, you look at Trayvon Mullen and AJ Terrell, and then the year that certainly Ryan's had, and then our safeties development, Kayvon Wallace and Van Smith, Tanner Muse, Isaiah Simmons, that group, there's a bunch of inexperience there. And the growth with Trayvon and AJ in particular, just through experience as the season has gone on, they've been far from perfect, but they have just gotten a little bit better, a little bit more confident as the years gone on. And they've got a great skill set. They're long, athletic, smart, intelligent, hardworking guys. But that improvement's kind of helped us as a defense just be consistent and continue to improve and develop some chemistry.
As Brent Venables, the defensive coordinator for Clemson, and he also added that he hopes it's not the swan song for the quartet on the defensive front, but if it is, they're hoping to have them go out with a bang and also having to play at least another game on their slate if they can make it to the college football championship contest in Atlanta. Corn, I believe you have some recruiting.
Indeed, I do. But interesting stuff from Venables there. And I mean, he always talks like, I'd love to have Venables and Muschamp sitting down at a table face-to-face talking defense. That would be an interesting conversation to sit back and listen to because, I mean, one of them Muschamp loves to talk in strict football terms, a lot of X's and O's when he starts getting into a flow on football, in particular defense. He's very comfortable when he slips into defense conversation mode. Venables doesn't get so much into X's and O's, but he talks a lot about the other important parts of playing great defense, especially he likes to talk a lot about where the eyes are and making sure that guys are seeing the right things. I think a conversation between those two talking strictly defense would be intriguing.
I think so. I think the thing about Venables, you could see his passion. You could see the passion not only has for defense, but he has a passion for this group, and you could tell. I mean, I've covered him in his other stop at Oklahoma, and I think just he has a passion for this particular group, and he knows that this group has hit another level, and I think that was personified in the game against Miami, and he wants to try and bring that out of them when they go into this Alabama contest here on Monday.
Well, I think he understands that emotion and talent go together. Separate the two, and your defense isn't playing well.
That's right. All right, to recruiting we go now, and we begin with some football stuff. 2019 linebacker Trey Wilkins of Stone Mountain, Georgia, going to be one of the most sought-after prospects in that state next year. His early lists of offers includes USC, Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Louisville, Auburn, Florida, Tennessee, and others. It's early in the process, but the Gamecocks are in a good spot with him right now. Says his relationship with Coleman Hutzler is pretty cool, he said. He likes how they're bringing the program around. He has been impressed with some of the recent recruiting classes at USC. He feels like they've got some ball players. So I think South Carolina, based on what he's saying right now, has a chance to have a nice long run with Trey Wilkins. And USC has a good history at Stone Mountain, Georgia. He will visit USC once he gets a date scheduled with Hutzler. He's looking at February, but it could come earlier. He said USC will be on his short list when he gets around to making one. Defensive end Dorian Gerald of Florence, College of the Canyons Junior College in California, was offered by Nebraska. He has taken official visits to Texas Tech and Louisville and has visits in January set with Ole Miss and Florida. USC was heavily involved with him for months, but in recent weeks he has not indicated much, if any, interest in the Gamecocks. This should be interesting. Linebacker Dax Holyfield of Shelby, North Carolina, told rivals Clemson is now back in the picture with him, and he'll probably take an official visit there in January.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
He'll visit Stanford next month. He also has North Carolina and Virginia Tech on his short list. Of course, USC was involved with him for an extended period as well until they just sort of backed out of it with him for whatever reason you want to believe.
Do you
Like
think
Clemson apparently?
Do you think that maybe USC enters back into the fray with Clemson getting involved, just to try and play keep away?
No, I think the ship has sailed. That ship has sailed. One-time USC commitment defensive lineman Dontrell Barkley, Independence Junior College, Kansas, committed to Charlotte. Defensive back Josh Williams of Palmetto Prep committed to Fayetteville State, and his teammate receiver Tyreek Martin committed to West Alabama. 6'4" Jermaine Cousinard of Montverde Prep in Florida plans to take an official visit to USC starting January 2nd. He's also drawn interest from Louisville, Kansas, Seton Hall, Baylor, and others. And in his blog, Zion Williamson wrote he hopes to be back in action in January. He said his decision is coming soon. He feels like he'll be making a decision soon. Does not say where that decision is going to take him, however. Top of the hour break. We'll be back.
Mm-hmm. I'll be right back. That's what I might do, but I'll go on the air for you. It's okay. Did you? Interesting. I'm just saying it's interesting. I used to work on a 103.1. I might just get mine later and meet up with y'all. There should be in anything. I'm willing. No. No, 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 no. We have M and M.
Yes, we do.
Awesome.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
We're back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornbluth in Tampa. Will Pelagic in New Orleans. Professor Tom Hayes back at the studios in downtown Columbia. Coming up a little bit more from here with Jim Harbaugh, coach of Michigan. Also more from Willie P. with the Tigers in New Orleans. But right here on Sports Talk, it's time for a special moment.
The big guys are up next. Corey Miller and Will Merritt. It's the M&M Boys. This is Sports Talk.
It is so good to have the M&M Boys back with us one more time for the 2017 season. Let me wish them both happy holidays. Hope they had a great Christmas. Will, happy holidays. Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, right back at you. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Hope everybody is hope Santa Claus was good to everybody.
Pastor Payne, the same to you, my friend.
What's up, buddy? Happy New Year, Phil. Well, what did I say for the Jewish guy?
Just happy Hanukkah's fine.
Happy Hanukkah, my friend. I'm from Paisley. You know, I'm not too smart.
Not too many Jewish folks in Paisley last time I checked. Hey, Corey, just saw
one Jewish person in Paisley, not even one.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I just was I saw some highlights of Alabama's practice today. They showed some of the offensive line they're working out. Their offensive linemen look kind of fat and slow to me. What do you think?
You want to repeat that again?
Alabama's offensive line looks kind of fat and slow.
Fat and slow. Are you out there? I don't know about that, but we'll see how fat and slow they are on Monday night. How about that?
No, my point in saying that, and of course that's tongue-in-cheek, but a lot of people are dissing Alabama these days. And, you know, they're thinking Clemson's not going to have too much trouble on Monday night.
Well, you know, a lot of people that are saying that probably have no clue, Phil, what they're talking about for one, or they're just pretty much homers. But we'll see. You know, to be honest with you, this offensive line, I think, was voted the best line in college football. And, you know, the fact that I heard it, I was on the radio this morning, and there's some fans calling in and saying they're going to win by double digits and blah, blah, blah. You know, they've taken a snapshot of Alabama's last game against Auburn, and they didn't play well. Auburn won the game. Clemson beat Auburn. Clemson seemed to be trending upwards by the way they played against South Carolina and against Miami. And so people take that capsule, if you will, and say, oh, this is the way things are going to be. But it's not going to be that way. And, you know, this team, Alabama, this is probably the first time in Nick Saban's history of coaching that he's finally going into a game like this and saying, hey, we got to prove ourselves. You know, we belong, you know, that the committee didn't make a mistake. And then also it's going to be one of those situations to where, you know, with the national media, most of them saying that Clemson is a better team, more complete team, blah, 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 blah. They're hearing all of this stuff. And, you know, they're coming out with something to prove. And so we'll see. You know, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I say about, you know, how have prepared they back healthy. I know that's a big situation. You know, 30 to 40 starts at linebacker and getting those guys back. Even though Matt Wilson will be out this ball game, Sean Deion Hamilton won't play, but they're getting a lot of players back on defense. And I think the snapshot that you wanted to look at this ball game, number one, in the Mercedes-Benz Dome, that team that played Florida State. That's the type of team that you're going to see. I think not a team that you saw in the last week of the season against Auburn. So, you know, great. And people can say what they won't feel, but there are a lot of people that have been honest. I can care less what they say because they don't have a clue. So, and sometimes we know with ESPN, they're going to play the whole narrative. They want people to buy in. You know, Clemson is the darling. You know, Phil, like you had that cute girlfriend in high school back where what's that little town you from, Latta, South Carolina?
Home of Champions. Latta, home of Champions. Yeah.
Okay, you know, pretty little girl. You had a good girlfriend that was steady. She didn't cheat on you with all the makeup and lipstick and dressed nice in the short skirt. Everybody want to run to that. You know, that's what Clemson is. They're the girl that's running around with a lot of lipstick and look good. But people sometimes forget about the steady incumbent. that's going to treat you right and win. And that's
Oh,
Alabama.
I don't know.
All
I don't
right.
know what was more fake news there, Phil running around with a good-looking woman or Clemson being overrated. I couldn't figure out what's more fake news.
Let's wake Will up. Let's
football team, but I think people are reading too much into this ball game.
Let's wake Will up. I'm sure he dozed off during that sermon, and give him a chance to respond in kind.
I didn't know if I was listening to Donald Trump talking about all this fake news. I don't even know where this is coming from. I mean, at the end of the day, you can talk about the girl that just shows up at school with lipstick on, but this is 3 years in a row that Clemson's played Alabama. This is not like this is the first rodeo for Clemson playing in a big-time game. So, the only thing I agree with what Corey said is that it doesn't matter what anybody says. It's all a matter of what happens Monday night at 9 o'clock. So, this is not – if you hear the players talk about it, unfortunately, guys, you can say whatever you want to, but it really comes down to those players that go out there with the numbers on their jerseys. And right now, you hear Clemson talk about it, it's not like this big anomaly to be there. They're used to being there. This is 3 years in a row that they've been on this scene. They're 11-1 in their last top 15 matchups. It's just not the first time they've played, teams that are high ranking or teams that are led by, Hall of Fame coaches like Nick Saban. At the end of the day, people might want to look at Clemson as the darling. I don't really care if you look at them as a darling. I don't care if you look at them as an underdog. It doesn't matter. Monday night, the proof will be in the pudding, and I think Clemson will be the better football team.
Corey, at least level with me on this. This will be the best Clemson defense that they play in these 3 ball games, because not only has Clemson coming into this game virtually healthy, but the last couple of games they played, not only against your beloved Gamecocks, but also against a Miami team that looked to at least show themselves out in a couple of other contests this season. They not only performed admirably, but almost flawlessly.
Oh, this is a very good football team. Clemson's very good. I'm not discrediting them by no means, but listen, I look at the whole pie. I look at the games through a video camera in my mind. Clemson is good. If I talk about the front four, they're maybe the best in the country. I'm not going to disagree with that across the board. But at the same time, I'm a realist. I look at this team struggle. I look at this team struggle against Boston College in the fourth quarter. I look at this team losing to a 4-8 team. I look at this team struggle against a Florida State team. Okay, that's what I see. Alabama schedules like teams weren't as good, but they both race these teams. So yeah, you can say you want to. Clemson hasn't played anybody like they're going to play Monday night. That has more talent.
That's just a dumb statement. That is just dumb. Because if you look across the board as far as strength of scheduling is concerned, it's still one of the tougher strength of schedules in the country.
You don't want to hear what he's saying, Corey. Go ahead, Will.
My point is, how many times this year, Corey, have we done this segment and you see the exact same thing with this stupid rhetoric of going, well, I'm just going to look at it the way I want to look at it, and then you got to come on next week going, maybe I was wrong about that one, or maybe I was wrong about this one. Maybe you just keep saying the same thing. Everybody wants to discount Clemson just simply because they haven't been there as long as Alabama has. But for the last 3 years, they've been one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the country. And, we don't even have a rivalry inside the state right now. So there's really nothing you've been talking about from your standpoint as far as comparing a program. Clemson, in my opinion, has the ability to have the baton passed to them as far as being one of the premier programs in the country. You can't deny that based off the historical facts.
First of all, I heard that part.
Nobody's
denying that they won their top 5 program in the last 3 years. They are. They are. But what I'm saying is people that say asinine statements like going to beat Alabama by double digits. Are you kidding me? This is the same football team that lost to a 4-8 team. This is the same team that Florida State freshman quarterback doesn't throw interception. They might lose. So, yeah, they beat a South Carolina team and a bad freaking ACC team who's trash in Miami. Congratulations. But
all right, hang on. Catch your breath. We'll come back in just a minute. Keep in mind, Corey, Alabama only beat Mississippi State by a touchdown. We'll be back in just a moment.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
We are back with the M&M boys, Will Merritt and Corey Miller, as we continue here on this Thursday edition of Sports Talk. All right, before we get to USC and Michigan, your thoughts there in a moment. But can we agree, gentlemen, that if Clemson defeats Alabama to take 2 out of 3 and move into the national championship game for the 3rd year in a row, can we agree, Corey, Will, start with Corey, that A, Clemson is the premier program in the country, and B, Dabo Swinney is the premier coach in the country? Can we agree, Corey?
No, I cannot agree with that.
Wow.
Can we get you to speak into the phone?
Do you really want him to speak into the phone?
I said, what I'm saying is, he's Nick Saban. Are you kidding me?
Well, I mean, the proof would be in the pudding. 2 out of 3, 3 straight trips to the championship game, maybe a 2nd straight national championship.
No, you can't. That's too much resume. Too much. How can you say that?
Well, I mean, looking at the here and now, I'm looking at the here and now and the future, because it does not look like the Clemson program is backing up at all down the road with what they've got coming in.
Like I said, if the bus was taken about, so many people would have a great Christmas. So let's see if he can do that first. I think it's baloney to say he surpassed Nick Saban. I mean, if he wins 2 out of 3, great. Good deal. To put him on the same pedestal.
All right, Will.
1 championship versus 5. I mean, Nick Saban's lost 14 games in 10 years.
Okay, look, I give you the historical. I give you the historical edge.
Every other year, almost the last decade, Jim.
I give you history. History, yes, but we're talking today. If Clemson wins and wins the national championship, Will, they're the Kings.
Well, I mean, Corey, I feel like I'm arguing with a 3-year-old right now. Are you kidding me?
I can't even hear what the fat boy is saying. To be honest with you. I mean, muffled in the phone. I don't even know what he's saying. So, and we'll try to guess what he's saying is we're having his Clemson flag and pom-poms right now.
All right, Corey, hang on. Let Will talk. Will,
I mean, listen, he's a great somebody Dabo. Okay, you guys bow down to him. I'm not.
All right, go ahead, Will, because Corey's phone is not clear either. We got to get you guys better phones. What's up with this?
No, you can't hear me because you don't want to hear me. That's the problem. It's not a matter of you don't get to any greater pinnacle in college football than winning a national championship. That's it. Corey, you're the same person that has said, we don't live in the past. We don't live in the past. We don't live in the past. And all you're doing is trying to give me past facts about Nick Saban. Just take a snapshot of here and now. If you want to go back 1 year, go back 1 year, go back 2 years. You're talking about a team that lost to Alabama about 2 years ago, beat them last year, and have a chance to repeat as a national champion, and you want to sit there and go to not at the top of college football? That to me, you're just making statements that you know you can't actually back up. And I'm not sitting there trying to tell you it's been the best program for the last 20 years. I'm saying right now, you cannot deny the fact that Clemson University right now, their football program is at the top of their game. You're going to lose money out, they're still there. Look at what they're coming in with the recruiting class coming in. This is a program that is here to stay. And I know you don't like hearing that, and a lot of Gamecock fans don't like hearing that. It's still a fact of the matter. And it comes down to this. If you want to talk about head coaches, and you want to talk about what they're doing with their program, there is not a program in the country right now that is garnering not only in-state, but out-of-state guys and attention to come to their program, to be a part of what they have going on, to be a part of what they are building with championship after championship, inside the conference, inside their state, and now on the national scene. And so that's why you're seeing 5 different states, their number one player is coming to upstate South Carolina to play football.
Pro, you have a question for the panel.
Yeah, I want to get these guys off emotion and talking football. The two previous contests were in the national championship game, meaning that both teams prepared 1 week. You guys see any difference in these two teams meeting in the semifinals with the elongated preparation time?
Well, I think it benefits Alabama, the fact that one, from a health aspect, Pro, because, you know, they have players that were hurt this year on defense. Now to get most of those guys back. So I think by not playing in the SEC championship really helps Alabama from just a health standpoint, and the fact we've known the history of Nick Saban when he has time to prepare for a team with that much time to get ready for Clemson. It's been lethal. I mean, the team comes out and it's been proven that we play excellent football. So I think it helps Alabama more so than anybody in the college football playoffs. And I'm sure that's why a lot of people are complaining. But at the end of the day, you know, it is X and O. It's about the game plan. We know what goes into this ball game. We can talk about both teams stacking the box and making both quarterbacks go to football. But there's a lot of other intriguing one-on-one matchups in this ball game, and I do think it's going to be a great game. I do, because I think it's two great football teams. But I think the layoff and the time from preparation and seeing what Clemson does helps Alabama. This is not last year's team. I don't think people want to say is better. I don't think so. The Deshaun Watson team was great, and he was a good quarterback. Everybody is nowhere in the stratosphere in the same era as Deshaun Watson. And so the teams that beat Nick Saban is the teams that had a quarterback that can spin it and that can throw it. Not guys that can run it. It's guys that can throw it and make tight throws and tight coverages. And that's why I feel confident that Alabama's going to win this football game, because I don't think Kevin Bryant can do that.
I think it's a great question. I think it's a great question. I think it's a loaded question, though, because I wonder, and I just wonder, where have we seen that when Dabo Swinney has had time to prepare, that it was not a well-prepared football team as well? I mean, granted, Nick Saban does a great job with time to prepare, but when all of a sudden Dabo Swinney stuff when he had time to prepare, and in the famous words of the Detroit Piston Adrian Dantley, when he just said, "Just roll the ball out and play, baby. Just roll the ball out and play." If you have 2 weeks or 2 months, roll it out and play, and we'll find out who's the better football team.
We're going to start a GoFundMe page to get Will a phone for next football season. We got to do something about that Campbell soup can he's using.
Down in he's down in Dabo's basement, back him in the carpet. That's why I can't hear him.
He's house sitting for me, not.
All right, listen. Now we got to talk about South Carolina and Michigan, and we'll take you guys through the break if you'll hang in there with us. But let's start with you, Corey. This is a Brunson said it yesterday after practice. This is a program game for South Carolina. Beat Michigan, win 9 games, an improvement from 6 last year to 9 this year. A New Year's Day Bowl victory over Michigan if they can get it. Could this be kind of a breakthrough moment in year 2 for Will Muschamp?
I think they're in such great shape, Phil. You're looking at the job that he's done, and you're looking at you buy into recruiting, which I know you do a lot with how you deal with the kids. They got a good recruiting class in his second year. This is a huge game for South Carolina, playing again Michigan in the Outback Bowl. This is a team that's Brian McClendon, I think, who's going to be the next offensive coordinator. You heard it here first. I think he will get that job, and I think he's a great innovator with a great mind. And I think what happens to South Carolina in this ball game, because Michigan don't know what to expect. You know, they got film of Kurt Roper's offense. Now they're going to face a new offense in Brian McClendon. Not that you're going to change everything, because you don't have time to change a whole offense, but the fact that the unknown, as good as Michigan's defense is, they're top 5 defense in the country. They're tough, but the fact they don't know what to expect and what South Carolina's going to do, I think it bodes well for them. And the fact that if they can win 9 games, as you mentioned, and say we'd be the top-notch name program in Michigan, recruiting is going to get that much better. They're doing a great job now. But if they win this game, it goes a long way for South Carolina. I'm not so sure it means anything for Michigan.
All right, guys, hang on if you don't mind. We'll keep you for a few more minutes on the other side. It's the M&M Boys with Corey Miller and Will Merritt. We're also going to hear from Jim Harbaugh and more from Clemson down in New Orleans as well. We'll be back in just a moment. Little bonus M&M boys for you tonight as we continue for a couple more minutes with Corey Miller and Will Merritt. All right, Will, your take on the Gamecocks at Michigan. Michigan an 8-point favorite, but a lot of people are feeling the Gamecocks are going to muster up enough offense here, play good enough defense, come away with what would be their 9th win of the season. What's your take on South Carolina and what this would mean to USC?
Well, I think it would be a very crowning achievement to a very improved year for South Carolina. I actually think South Carolina is going to win this football game. I'm not sold on Michigan. I've not really been sold on them all year long. I really have to agree with Corey a little bit. I think a little bit of the wrinkles that they'll be able to throw at Michigan is going to bode well for them. And I think this is going to be probably an opportunity for South Carolina to foreshadow what their offense can look like in the future. As we all know, that's where they're completely inept right now. I think defensively they're good enough to stop Michigan. I think they're big enough, strong enough to be able to go up against the Wolverines. I don't see Michigan being able to hang a ton of points on South Carolina. So I really like South Carolina to win this football game. I think that they will have something to prove coming off of that Clemson loss to where they'll be able to prepare well. I think they'll be able to go out there and play inspired football. As we already know the type of success that they have had in bowl games here recently. So I don't think that this is a far-fetched to say that that 8-point favorite that they've given Michigan is a little bit out of whack. I don't like that, and I believe that Coach Muschamp probably is looking at this as a springboard into his offseason as building his program. I think that the biggest key for South Carolina in this ball game is just completely ball control. I think that if they control the football and can do exactly the exact opposite of what they did against Clemson, I think this will be their game to lose.
So, with all that being said, Will, give me your pick for the Sugar Bowl. Give me the winner and the score. Give me your pick for the Outback Bowl.
I mean, certainly the Sugar Bowl, I think the game's going to be very similar to the last 2 years. I don't think – why would we think it would be very much different? I think it'll be a very, very close ball game. I think it'll be a fourth-quarter type ball game. I think Clemson is the better football team. I really believe that with all my heart. I believe this is going to be more like a 34 to 24 type game. I think Clemson in that 7 to 10-point victory range. For South Carolina, I think it'll be a lower scoring game, but one that they can win. I think it's going to be more of a 21-15, 21-14 type ball game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see that. Corey, Pastor of Payne, how do you see the two games playing out?
Well, South Carolina, I'm sorry, I think this is a game that's obviously two offense struggling. Of course, Michigan don't really have a quarterback. They're going to have trouble throwing a forward pass. So South Carolina can stop the running game. I think with Brian McClendon, they're going to
You're still with us, Corey?
I think so.
Yeah, go ahead.
It'll be 21-17.
21-17 Gamecocks. All right, what about the Sugar Bowl?
Sugar Bowl is going to be very interesting. I can tell you this first time now. Alabama's going to be playing with a chip on their shoulder. One, people have questioned them about them even being in a tournament over Ohio State. People like Phil Kornblum and others are questioning if they can win this game. Saying Clemson is a better football team and all of this good stuff. Let me tell you something. All you're doing is poking a giant, okay? And they have something to prove with this Clemson football team. I've seen too many negative things out throughout the course of the year with Clemson football team, and I think they are very vulnerable, and this will be by far the best football team. They have everybody that they have played, but guess what? You want to go by since your recruiting guy, Phil Kornblum, 4 and 5 stars. Clemson has about 40 on their roster. Alabama almost doubles that, 60 plus. Okay, and they got the talent to match up man to man. You can tell me about this defensive front and all this stuff. Well, it's more than that in the ball game. Jalen Hurts got something to prove. The Alabama Crimson Tide. You know that there's a low tide and a high tide, but get ready for the high tide, baby, in New Orleans come Monday night. And everything that's in the path of a high tide, it washes away, and the Crimson Tide will be in the path.
The tide may have gotten Corey.
No, Corey, are you still with us?
It's a roll damn tide.
We never got his score. His score faded away from us, but we know that he picked the Tide. Okay, thank you, Corey. Will, I guess he's gone too. Thank you as well. We appreciate both of you. Thank you so much for being with us all season long. And my goodness, I don't know. Somebody's feelings going to be hurt, guys, after Monday night between those two.
No, I was about to say, Will, we didn't get who they think they would be playing. Georgia, Oklahoma.
Well, here's the dumb thing with this with Corey's fallacy about not playing anybody. I look at Sagarin right now. Clemson is the 7th highest schedule rank, and Alabama is 55. So I'm just saying here, this fallacy that Clemson hasn't played anybody. Clemson's played more teams with winning records than Alabama has. Clemson's 7-0 against the top 30. Alabama's 3-1.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, Alabama had a couple of after they beat Florida State, but of course Florida State lost its quarterback early in the third quarter. So, I mean, that wasn't the same Florida State team for the last 30 minutes. Then they got your Colorado State and they got your Fresno State in there. They took care of business there. They romped over Vanderbilt. They beat a bad Ole Miss team badly. They beat Texas A&M on the road by 8 at a time when Texas A&M, well, they were pretty much a question mark the entire season. They rolled Arkansas and Tennessee okay. They beat LSU at home by a couple of touchdowns. They won at Mississippi State by a touchdown. They lose to Auburn. So they blew out the weaker teams on their schedule, as they tend to do. The better teams on their schedule. Of course, their strength of schedule will no doubt hurt by the fact that Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, A&M, Arkansas, Tennessee, all down. That's a lot of down in your conference schedule. LSU was okay, not great. Mississippi State was okay, not great. And then they played Auburn, which was a really, really good team, and they got beat.
Well, it stands to reason what I was talking about earlier, the fact that, we have to start asking ourselves, is the SEC really as good as we think it is? Because right now, I mean, you listed literally half the SEC West, and half the SEC West was down. And like I said, Clemson has 7 victories over the top 30. There's only one other team that has 5, which is Oklahoma, and nobody else has more than 4. And Alabama's not one of them. So it's in my mind, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, all this stuff about Alabama is being, having all these 4 and 5 stars is great, but I've yet to see them play the kind of game that shows me that they could beat Clemson.
Well, you always have to fear Alabama pro. I mean, you just never take anything for granted when you're playing those guys. And I don't think you can overstate the fact that give Saban and the coaching staff that he has 3 weeks to get ready for you. They're going to have a well-prepared football team. But you can't say that and not give credit to Clemson the same way and say that Dabo Swinney and his staff will have a well-prepared football team. This is giant on giant. Both teams have enough talent,
yes,
to fill out 3 or 4 rosters between them. So, when you start measuring the number of 5-star this and 4-star that, they both have plenty to go around. I think the difference, when you boil it down, I think Clemson's defense is better than Alabama's defense across the board, and I think offensively, Alabama's got one receiver who's caught any passes this year for the most part. Okay, somebody else is going to have to rise up to beat Clemson in that category. I don't know who that's going to be or if it's capable. I think the only hope that Alabama has is that somehow it can just muster a 200-yard running game against Clemson. If it rushes for 200-plus yards and Hurts is then able to hit a few passes, then, yeah, Alabama's going to win the football game. I don't think they can do that against this Clemson defense.
Well, the key point here is Clemson has beaten everybody on their schedule who they have kept off schedule. The 2 teams that gave them the most trouble who stayed on schedule, Syracuse and North Carolina State. And Clemson has had a couple of big interception for a touchdown, special teams touchdown against NC State. The team that gets the special teams touchdown in this game wins the football game.
What's the plan here?
We're going to try to do both. I'm seeing where I can cut at least a minute off Harbaugh because it's 4:37.
Yeah. So you want me to come out of Harbaugh and then I'll throw to Dorian?
Give me a second.
By the way, I finally got an answer to the question about why they're practicing at Tulane. Dabo picked it.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Thanks again to the M&M boys. Nobody argues better than these two. We always appreciate them being with us throughout the football season. Look forward to having them back with us in 2018. Now let's get you some final comments from the main characters that we are following here in Tampa and in New Orleans. It was the head coach's media session here today. We heard from Muschamp earlier. Jim Harbaugh, the coach of Michigan, talking about the Gamecock defense, and he's impressed by what he has seen of them on film.
Very impressed. The first thing that sticks out to me is when you watch the tape, the length and athleticism of the team. Just length, long arms, tall.
You're going to throw to me?
Athletic players. And they play athletic. And they play fast. Next thing is defensively, they really run to the football. They pursuit of the football. Tough schemes, multiple schemes. They'll play a 4 down front. They'll play a 3 down front. Linebackers in multiple gaps in their alignment. Defensive linemen standing up, moving around. Man coverage in the secondary, zone coverage in the secondary, quarters coverage, 3 deep coverage, single high, man free coverage. And they do a lot schematically, and they do it well. The front 7, and call it the front 8. I mean, they like to get an extra hat in the box, and the defensive linemen play very athletically, especially on 3rd down. They a lot of movement up front and twist games. It just moves, with the defensive line. And that's where a lot of their length shows up there. I mean, the length, long arms, restrict gaps because they're so long and athletic. Very impressed. That's just the defensive side of the ball.
Is your business trip approach like it did last year, and why is that mindset important?
we're just approaching the game as our next game, you know, as a big game, as a great challenge and an opportunity to compete. That's always the best part. Our guys are getting themselves prepared, doing the things that you do in a game week to get yourself prepared, meetings, film watching, practices, training.
All right, Jim Harbaugh from his meeting with the media earlier today. If you want to hear more from Coach Harbaugh, you can go to our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and check it out there. Meantime, with Willie P. in New Orleans, the Clemson Tigers, bunch of defensive players meeting with you guys today.
We had a defensive effort today from the Tigers coming in here to the media room, and it was funny. We've been asking all week, you know, what was the onus behind the Tigers practicing at Tulane instead of the game site. It was actually something that Dorian O'Daniel told us. He said that it's actually Dabo Swinney's preference. Not only the connection of the 1992 game where they practiced there and won the Sugar Bowl, but also the fact that they felt that they could better secure that site versus the Superdome, which, as you know, Corn, very cavernous and possibly some wandering eyes around the stands there could possibly be spotting some things that they don't want to have seen. But outside of that, Dorian O'Daniel and the Tigers have learned a lot over the course of the season in overcoming adversity. O'Daniel points to that Syracuse game as the prime example of that.
I wouldn't say it was the wake call. I would say it was just a bump in the road. You know, all roads to success have detours. All of them have bumps in the road. So we took it as a learning experience. We didn't let it define us or our season. It obviously sucked to lose to a team after like the run we've had leading up to that point. But I mean, it comes with the game. The best team doesn't always win in football, and I mean, you see that week in and week out, not just with us, but college football all over the country. And understanding that, you know, we bounced back from it and we responded very well, and I'm just happy of how our guys responded.
How much do the memories of that game stick with you more than maybe some of the wins you've had?
I mean, it sticks with you a lot just because we haven't lost much. I mean, in my 5 years of college football, I probably lost like 5 or 6 games, give or take. So anytime you do lose, you remember it.
What's different about Alabama?
They have a lot of different guys that they can get the ball to and make plays. Not that they didn't last year, but this year they just have a variety of running backs, receivers that they do get the ball out to and can make plays.
What's an offensive struggle? I mean, they've struggled since we stayed against Auburn. Do you see those offensive struggles on tape?
Yeah. I mean, obviously there's things that they've struggled on, but at the same time, they watch tape and they've seen stuff that we struggled on. So, I mean, that's a good thing about college football. You know, you see teams' weaknesses and strengths, and, you know, your offense is going to try to attack those and expose those when it comes to game time. But, you know, we've been practicing on our mistakes, and I'm sure they've been practicing on their mistakes. So you can't really focus on – I mean, you got to understand, you know, that what they've struggled with, but at the same time, you have to put yourself in their shoes.
What do you see as a defender?
He definitely improved a lot. Just his knowledge of the game, his maturity in the game. Just seeing defenses, seeing when they're blitzing, seeing what coverage they're in. You can just really see him diagnosing defenses and what they're in, and you just have to honor that and, you know, not give them a look too early or whatever the case may be.
Jalen and Kelly Bryant have put up similar numbers. Do you see them as mirror images, or do you see any differences in their skill set?
They're both great players, but there's definitely differences. I feel like Jalen Hurts is a guy that has been in a system to where, you know, running isn't his first option. I mean, Kelly Bryant's running isn't his first option either. Both quarterbacks go through all the reads. They are similar, but they're different in some aspects. I do think Kelly is a little bit better runner than Jalen Hurts as far as elusiveness, but Jalen Hurts is more of a physical type runner. He's more likely to, you know, lower his shoulder rather than Kelly when he's going to try to make you miss.
As your star has risen, have you noticed teams doing different things to try and game plan against you and what you've been doing in the past games?
Yeah, people have been trying me, you know, but people have been trying to bomb me and stuff a couple games because they look at me on a slot receiver and they're like, okay, this is a linebacker, there's a nickel linebacker against let's go deep on them, or let's go one-on-one, whatever the case may be. And I mean, I can't blame them, because if I was offensive coordinator, I'd probably do the same thing. Just because, you know, you don't really see guys like the linebacker type guy to be able to cover a slot or whatever the case may be. I'm expecting to get tried a decent bit this game, so got to come to work.
That's Dorian O'Daniel. 3 pass breakups this year, by the way, for O'Daniel, using him almost, I would say, 50-50 between pass coverage and stuff in the run game.
How many times did you write his name into our poll now? How many times have you gotten it in there tonight?
I've only done it once to protect the integrity of the poll.
Yes, that's important. That's important. Oklahoma State is leading Virginia Tech 27-14, playing that game in Orlando in the Camping World Bowl.
Yeah, Mason Rudolph, 290 yards and 2 touchdowns already.
Yeah. Let's see. Also on the bowl schedule for tonight, besides this one, we have got the Alamo Bowl in San Antonio, Stanford and TCU. The Holiday Bowl, Michigan State and Washington State. Earlier today, Navy blew out Virginia 49-7. So the ACC not going well right now in the bowl season after Duke got that first win.
Yeah, the sad thing about that is Virginia scored on the opening kickoff. It was 7-0.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they went the opening kickoff back, and then the water faucet just shut off.
Hey, all right, that will do it. Thanks to everyone who was with us tonight. Great work in New Orleans, Will. More of that tomorrow, more from here as well. Thank you, Brian Leonard, for a great job. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.